The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, continuing our coverage of the 2018 fantasy football season. If you haven't caught up yet, go to the description or my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme, and you can find the entire preseason fantasy football draft kit up there now. Updated rankings, every show, all free, on demand, all the pods. It's in the description of the video and podcast as well. So go check that out. Plus, all the rankings are up on dkplaybook.com. Do not be afraid to give the episode a like. Help keep all this stuff free, and this is what you're going to see. I mean, the problem is when you have free stuff, you get quality rankings like mine, which are not of the highest quality. But when you have to pay to get rankings, you get the best ranker in the business. So let me present to you, new to The Athletic, the #1 most accurate fantasy football ranker. It's Jake Ciely. What's up, dude? Congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you. We can actually announce it this time. Yeah, we couldn't talk about it last time. It was just all speculation.
Yeah, well, here you are. We caught up over the weekend up in New York City. You did a Flex League draft, and you and I are going to review that draft. That'll be on tomorrow's show because, full disclosure, I'm actually in New York City while you're watching this right now because it's coming out on a Wednesday. So if anything happens between like 6 p.m. on Tuesday and like 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning, it's probably not going to be covered on the show. We're up to date until then. So before I be like, how did you miss that? But anyway, how's it going at The Athletic? What do you have out so far?
Yeah, I got the rankings out. No surprise. I already have those. I have QBs and running backs, the hills I'm going to die on with those guys. And today being Tuesday, which means when they're watching the second show for the non-PPR flex, I'll have another article out on The Athletic. I haven't decided what it's going to be yet. It's a surprise. But I also, speaking of how things, I wrote this specifically for you, Pat. Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos.
I mean, that's a problem that people get into all the time. I mean, if you voted for Kodos, you should have. I mean, they threw it out there. You could have voted for Ross Perot as the third-party candidate, but they scoffed at it and said, throw your vote away. And that, maybe they should have voted for. I mean, I don't even know if Kodos or Kang would have been better than Ross Perot. I don't know. I don't know how that ends up working out. We got NFL news to get to. I'm going to try to update the rankings as we go along. I try to do it every Friday, and then I'll get almost every day towards the end because people shouldn't be drafting yet because there's got a lot of injuries happening right now. We'll start with Alshon Jeffrey, who has a shoulder injury, and then news came out that he might be put on the PUP list to start the season, and now Doug Peterson has walked that back a little bit, talking about, I don't know where these reports from the PUP list came from, but he never actually said, like, he's okay. So what are we doing with Alshon? Like, is he going to play week 1?
I am less certain by the day. You know, a couple weeks ago, I was fine with Alshon Jeffrey because he was on track as planned. And, you know, it's unfortunate because the shoulder surgery was after the Super Bowl because they were kind of busy doing that during the time as winning it. So you had to wait and get that shoulder taken care of. So it's understandable, like you talk about the 6 to 8 month time frame, and now you're pushing into the season. So everything looked to be progressing as it should, and everything was fine, and they were expected him to start on the PUP in the preseason and eventually come off and potentially be ready. But now we're heading into week 2 of the preseason, and he's still not getting there out in the field. He's only doing some drills on the side with some coaches. So you have to start getting a little bit concerned. I don't think he's going to start the season on the PUP because I don't think they would lock that. They're going to lock them into missing him for 6 weeks if they do that. So I could see this being maybe he misses the first 2 weeks. And as you and I have talked about, and we talk about all the time, the easiest time to make up for people injured or on suspension is the beginning of the season. So I'll move him down a little bit, but I'm not going to completely get panicky and say I don't want him as a wide receiver 3 anymore.
Alshon Jeffrey or Allen Robinson?
Allen Robinson.
Tyreek Hill or Alshon Jeffrey?
Tyreek Hill. I would have said Alshon Jeffrey a month ago.
I had both those guys one spot behind Alshon Jeffrey in my tiered rankings up on DK Playbook. So the guys just ahead of him, would you take at this moment, not knowing about either of them, Josh Gordon or Alshon Jeffrey?
Ooh. I'm going to go with Jeffrey because at least I know he's battling an injury. Josh Gordon, this could be Andrew Luck with an all-field problem, is that, oh yeah, he's going to play, and then all of a sudden, we don't even get a single game from Josh Gordon.
Chris Hogan or Alshon Jeffrey? Because I'm firmly in the camp of Chris Hogan.
Chris Hogan. I'm so glad this is one of those bandwagons I have no problem other people jumping on.
Yeah, well, there are some bandwagons. The good thing about Hogan is that he's still not approached where he probably should be going in terms of ADP because he started so far back in the pack. I remember, this is going to be date me a little bit, but I think it was 2012 with Ray Rice. When it was the first year Ray Rice was like projected to be the starter, he was going to like the 14th round, 12th round, something, and then the buzz started happening during the preseason. Like, this guy could be really good, and he ended up going like the 4th round. A lot like Kareem Hunt last year, where people were like, well, I don't really want to take him in the 2nd round, myself included. I was one of those people. You were on the other side, and it's almost sort of the same situation where, no, he's worth this pick. It seems kind of crazy, but Kareem Hunt is definitely worth the early round, middle round, 2nd round pick. And I'm like, 4th round sounds about right to me. But sometimes where these guys start so far back in the pack, you can't even really hold that against them. You have to figure out where they are now. I feel like Chris Hogan is still someone who is being currently underdrafted.
Yeah, it's like the college football playoff rankings. If you start unranked at the beginning of the season, and even though if you could be like 10-0 into the final 2 weeks, it took so much just to get into the top 10. Some of those schools never make it to the playoff contention. So I think that's the best way to look at it. Is you start, as you said, so far back, as much hype, as much excitement, as much that we can keep, pumping and banging the table and all that type of stuff. He's only going to go so far because he was so far back. But the fact is, let's look at last year. Chris Hogan, before he was hurt, despite also doing very little in week 1, was a top 10 wide receiver when he left in both formats. So I don't understand why more people aren't excited about Chris Hogan.
So that was tier 4. Alshon would probably bump to the very bottom of that unless you think some of these other guys should go ahead of him in tier 5. Pierre Garcon or Alshon Jeffrey?
No, I would still go Jeffrey.
Michael Crabtree or Alshon Jeffrey?
Still Jeffrey.
Corey Davis or Alshon Jeffrey?
I would love to say Davis, but I want to see Corey Davis stay on the field for 2 weeks in a row before I put Corey Davis definitively in front of Alshon Jeffrey.
All right, so bumping him down 2 spots is probably the move here for me then. So Alshon would move in the rankings. All right, so versus running backs, I mean, you're on team Joe Mixon, so I'm not even going to ask you that. I'm a bit off of him. Would you take Alshon Jeffrey or Jordan Howard?
I would take Jordan Howard. I was taking Jordan Howard before this.
Would you take Alshon Jeffrey or Rex Burkhead?
Ooh, it depends on how my team makes up. That's a coin flip for me.
All right, Marshawn Lynch or Alshon Jeffrey?
I'd probably lean Lynch in a non-PPR. PPR, I'm still going Jeffrey.
Yeah, that's right around the range. Maybe I'll leave him ahead of Joe Mixon because I'm not a Joe Mixon believer. I have some bets out there. Alex Collins versus Joe Mixon. I can't wait to lose those. But yeah, just down 2 spots in the rankings for now until we hear anything else. The other news out of Eagles camp was that Nelson Agholor actually missed practice as well. Now they're chalking this up to rest. So if Jeffrey's moving down a little bit, does that mean we should bump up Agholor any?
I don't know necessarily if we should. I mean, this is also, remember Matt Collins 2 weeks ago? Look out for him. And all of a sudden now Matt Collins is on the roster bubble because it's the preseason. It's what we do all the time. I think the more intriguing one is maybe just Mike Wallace has some value at the end of drafts. And like for the weeks that Jeffrey is out only, I think Agholor, I don't really see him moving up that much, even if Jeffrey's out, because I think Wallace will kind of step in. Maybe they run the ball a little bit more. You see more of Zach Ertz, even Dallas Goedert gets into the mix. I don't think it's all going to go Agholor. And the biggest thing is Agholor can't be a team's number 1 option. So I don't think you're just going to funnel that target share specifically straight to Nelson Agholor.
And I would say that you don't need to spend any draft capital on Mike Wallace. There's no reaching for Mike Wallace for a 2 week, but if he is on the waiver wire or the last round and you want to have a plug and play, I mean, it would be even really difficult unless we see something in the preseason to roll him out there in week 1. And obviously Philly is in the Thursday night game. So when you're playing on DraftKings, he's not going to be a part of that main slate. But if you just pick him up, put him on your bench if he goes undrafted, if he does have a big week 1, you might be able to use him as a wide receiver 3 in week 2. But that's best case scenario for Mike Wallace, really. And that's assuming that Alshon misses 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a lot happening to be able to find a way to use Mike Wallace.
All right, the other one out of Philly is Carson Wentz. Doug Peterson said Carson Wentz and his knee will need a week of 11-on-11 work to be ready for week 1. Nick Foles is still nursing a neck injury as well. Do you anticipate Carson Wentz actually being on the field for that opening Thursday nighter?
I do, as long as he doesn't have a setback at this point, and the setback is going to come from him. I think that if you look at the progression, if you look at what we've seen so far, you see him. I think I talked to you or somebody about it, is the fact that he's moving vertically in his base in the pocket. I want to see him more horizontally with that leg, but he's starting to get there. He's starting to make those movements. My concern is why I say it relies on him is because you know how players can be. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel great. Let's keep going. And they start pushing it. And then sometimes they either overcompensate for something because they are still feeling a little bit of a nagging soreness. And then it's kind of like the Jose Reyes when he used to injure like his quad and then his calf and then the shin running the bases 10 years ago for the Mets. It's kind of that type of stuff. It's like you overcompensate somewhere and end up leading towards another injury and then you have to sit for a week. So as long as Carson Wentz doesn't get too aggressive, it seems like he's on pace for week 1. I think that my biggest concern, like I said, is he might even have that in the back of his mind that Nick Foles is hurt too and really start pushing himself. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And worst case scenario, it sounds like he would only miss week 1, if anything.
All right, so I guess the big conundrum in drafts is if you're going to take an injured Carson Wentz, which I don't really have no problem with. Even if he misses 4 weeks, it doesn't really matter. Like we've talked about, you can plug and play so many different QBs with a full slate of games and no bye weeks with no real issues. But in a draft, a gun to your head and you had to take one, would it be Wentz or would it be Luck?
It would be Luck at this point.
Yeah,
at least because
it would be Luck for me too.
Yeah, and the thing is, just between the two of them, look, they both have top 5 upside. We've seen 1 year of Wentz doing it with a great touchdown interception ratio. And I was a big fan of Carson Wentz coming out of college, so I want to make that specifically clear. But we've seen Andrew Luck be in contention for the number 1 quarterback. We see the ability that he has. Obviously, he could come back and not be anything like he used to be. He might even be 90% of what he used to be, which is still pretty damn good. But at least with Andrew Luck, he's already out there. He's already making throws. He's already playing games.
All right, so would you go Carson Wentz or let's say Kirk Cousins?
Nah, I would roll the dice on Carson Wentz.
Right now, I had Wentz at the very top of that tier 3 of quarterback, 1 spot ahead of Luck. I'm going to swap those two, yet keep him ahead of Kirk Cousins. But I'm still under the approach of I'm going to try to wait as long as possible, see if I can get Russell Wilson. If I can't do that, I probably won't be taking any of these guys in this range. I'll wait till your Phillip Rivers, Marcus Mariota's like round 13, 14. That's how I'm playing my strategy at
Matthew Stafford for free.
Matthew Stafford for free, but hey, I would rather roll the dice on like a Mahomes who's going a bit higher now or Mariota rather than take Matt Stafford, who's very consistent across the board. But I would hope to spike with one of those guys, and if it doesn't work out, cut them. And then I can just pick up Matt Stafford. But then I can pick up Matt Stafford for free. What's the difference?
Because I'd rather just roll with Matt Stafford for 16 games because the guy finishes top 8 every single year. And I'm writing about this, so sneak preview, haha. If you look at it, is Matthew Stafford had 4 games where he didn't score 15 points last year and the year before and the year before. He basically averages about 4 games where he doesn't score 15 points. You know who else does that? Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, all the rest. So maybe he doesn't have that 35, 40-point ceiling, but at the same time, he has scored over 30 points 6 or 7 times in the past 3 years. People just hate the consistent, boring guy. And that Matthew Stafford is going to, I don't understand why people don't want him. I don't want the upside of Patrick Mahomes. What is Patrick Mahomes' ceiling is Matthew Stafford.
I don't know about that. I know that Stafford's actually rushed in a few touchdowns, more than most people think, but I think that there is a dual threat capability to Pat Mahomes potentially that we haven't seen in his 1 game at the NFL level.
Well,
that could unlock a little bit more, and that's the reason I like Mariota too. If he starts running, those quarterbacks are just worth so much more.
So I will agree with one thing with Patrick Mahomes before people are already posting comments about the Patrick Mahomes thing because they didn't get to this point in the video. You know how they just, Jake, you're a moron. Is obviously Patrick Mahomes has a better floor. Where I'm saying is his ceiling is Matthew Stafford is where the rushing is more than Stafford. I don't see his passing matching Stafford. So I think it ends up balancing out. And that's why I say the ceiling is Matthew Stafford.
Well, just for reference, and we'll cover this more on the draft recap show, but you took Carson Wentz in the 10th round of the flex draft. Pat Mahomes actually went in the 15th round, which is the lowest I've seen him go in any draft this year.
I 100% agree with you. I've never seen him last that long.
I'm just surprised. I mean, given the choice between the two, I mean, I like where you got Wentz in the 10th, but I would rather, if you could just tell me these were the picks and you attach the round to them, I would rather take Patrick Mahomes in the 15th.
Oh, obviously. I don't disagree with you on that at all. I was shocked. I thought that when I actually started a quarterback run, we'll talk about it, I thought Patrick Mahomes was going to be in that mix, honestly.
All right, out of Dallas, Ezekiel Elliott is expected to be used more in the passing game this season. He ends up going from 2.1 catches per game to 2.6 last season, so from a rookie into his 2nd season. I still have a hard time believing the exact same coaching staff is going to continue to, like, he would need such a leap for me to crack inside. Like, I have him ranked behind Kamar, I have him ranked behind Barkley, only really because I project those guys for more receptions on the year. So when we really look at it, he had 26 catches last year. Even if he gets up to 40, like, I feel like that's almost his ceiling at this point, unless I'm totally wrong on it. And this is what I think kneecaps him. And I do PPR rankings. In standard, it's a little bit different. But if we're talking PPR, like, how much more usage is he really going to get in the receiving game? This just sounds like talk to me.
See, but I don't even think he really needs to get that much more work. I think he can get close to 50, even maybe into the 50s. Because
I mean, that's basically double of what he did last year.
No, but look at what he did last year with missing 6 games. So you already factor in the missed time, and then you factor in the usage of more. So again, that's probably ceiling 50-55. But even if you just take his pace from last year, that consistency, that floor, even in PPR, because he rushes for so much, because he is such a touchdown guy, I want that. I have him at number 4 in PPR. It's one spot in front of Kamara. So if you say, oh, I want Kamara, I'm not going to be like, you're a moron. But when it comes down to it, Ezekiel Elliott week in and week out, I know his touches are going to be there. Kamara is week in and week out. You also want him to be as efficient as he was last year. Maybe he's less efficient and gets more touches, but are those more touches going to continue after the first 4 weeks when Mark Ingram's back? I don't know. With Zeke, I know he's touching the ball 20 games, whether they're 20 times, whether they're winning or losing.
Would you go Bell or David Johnson?
I'm going Bell.
You're going Bell?
Yeah. I actually like that he's not playing.
I really want to put David Johnson at number 2 and potentially number 1. I really do. I don't have the guts to do it because I'm a coward, but this is just watching his first 2 runs in the preseason. I try not to get sucked in the preseason, so I'm not going to overreact, but I think there's a distinct possibility that he leads the league in touches.
And no Amir Abdullah hype from that one play from 3-4 years ago, whenever it was? Like that's the excitement you're buying into here?
Yeah, I didn't buy into it then. I'm trying to temper expectations, but the path for David Johnson to be the number 1 fantasy player is there.
I was going to say, let's put it this way. Any of those 4 finishing at number 1, would it surprise anybody?
Yeah, in PPR, it would surprise me if Zeke finished at number 1. That's why he's not a part of that.
That wouldn't even surprise me, honestly.
It would surprise me. I would think that Barkley has a better case to being the number 1 player than Zeke does. Now, Zeke could be the number 3 player probably more often than Barkley ends up inside the top 3. But in terms of number 1, that's why I think that Kamara and Barkley have the edge over Elliott in the ceiling department, just because I don't think that those receptions will actually ever materialize for Elliott.
I don't need the receptions. I need the touchdowns. Like, I could see Zeke finishing number 1 with 15, 16 touchdowns. I think that's conceivable for what he can do, even with an offense in question, even with Dak Prescott looking poor last year. And if you look at the 2 teams, too, who's got the better offensive line? It's not even a question. It's miles ahead of the Giants, what the Cowboys have, even with the Giants' improvement. And then if you look at strength of opponent, which isn't strength of schedule, because strength of schedule based on last year is a mistake. But if you look at the projections for this year of what the Giants are going to be facing, and I am a Barkley fan behind me, and I have Barkley at number 5 in half point in standard and 6th in PPR. All that being said is he's behind Zeke because the offensive line and the schedule they're facing this year, as of today, is definitively tougher than the Cowboys when it comes to running the ball.
But one of the big problems that I have, and maybe I'm just off on my projection of Dallas in general, I don't think they're going to be very good. So I don't think that he's going to get beaucoup red zone opportunities as opposed to maybe the last 2 years. And I can see them trailing in a lot of these games. And if they're not passing to him, that really marginalizes what his upside is.
So, yeah, I think they're going to pass to him, and I think he's going to be basically the only option. And then that's tongue in cheek. But when I get into the red zone, he is the guy. Like, I have 15 touchdowns, I could see 12 and 3.
Now, in full disclosure, Elliott's my number 9 overall player, my number 6 running back. I don't hate the guy.
Right.
I'm just going to have to end up with no shares because I don't have him ranked, and I'm not willing to take him as high as he's going in drafts. He's a first-round pick, for sure. But when we get to the very top of the board, you really have to nitpick. That's one of these problems when we talk about a lot of these players, is that when we talk about the best overall players, we only ever talk about their negatives as a way to separate them. Why do you like this guy marginally more than this guy? Which I think is unfair to, me saying, like, people are like, why do you hate Elliott so much? I don't hate Elliott. It's just, I happen to like Barkley just a tad bit more. But that's me. Like you're on the other side of the fence.
Right, and that's not, and I'm with you with David Johnson. I would love to see David Johnson number 1. I mean, he's one of my favorite players, as you well know. So if he finished as number 1, despite the miserable Arizona Cardinals team as a whole, I would be excited. I think that's the only concern that I have with David Johnson is similar to the situation you're talking about now, is that the defense going to stop anybody? Can the offensive line? It's almost like he has the Giants and the Cowboys problems put together.
Okay, so we have the Palm Beach Post reports Devontae Parker is out with a broken finger but could be ready for week 1. What does this do to Parker's ranking, and does this swap Stills and Parker in terms of rankings, potentially ADP? Do you think people will react to this, and does this make Parker an actually decent value now if he starts dropping?
Well, Devontae Parker might end up being properly priced if he ends up falling. Devontae Parker was always overdrafted because we keep doing the same damn thing every single year. Oh, Devontae Parker, all this talent. Look at what he can do. Look at the end of that one season and how amazing. Imagine over 16 games, and every year it's Devontae Parker. And you know what we've done for the past 3 years? Every single year we've seen Kenny Stills outperform him and be the better wide receiver. So as a joke, I kept saying, wait 3 rounds and take the better Dolphins wide receiver. And a little bit as tongue-in-cheek, similar to before, but the fact is you look at it, performance-wise, he is. Now, skill-wise, Parker's better than Stills. But you're talking about performance, Stills has done it so far, Parker hasn't. So I was taking Stills, he is going to climb. I don't think he's going to become overpriced because he's been undervalued to this day. To even specifically today as we're recording this, he's still undervalued. And Parker is still overvalued. If they fall and ended up becoming neck and neck in drafts, I think that's the proper place both of them should have been in the first place.
So if they were both going in the same slot, which one would you take?
I would still lean towards Stills.
Really? So just no ADP involved, no round involved. If you had to have one on your team this year, it would be Kenny Stills over Devontae Parker?
He's done it for the last 3 years. What's stopping him now?
Oh, no, Ryan Tannehill's back. There's no Jarvis
He's
Landry.
done it with Ryan Tannehill.
There's no Jarvis Landry around anymore. He did it with Ryan Tannehill, but Kenny Stills was always better after Tannehill got hurt and Matt Moore came in the game.
Yeah, it's not to that stark of a contrast, though.
Yeah, I just always remember the long touchdowns coming with Matt Moore. That was me. Maybe that's just my bias of what I'm choosing to remember and what I'm not, but just that sticks out in my mind very, very sharply.
He's also got a really weird Twitter handle with the capitalized and the uncapitalized letters, and so that's another bonus.
All right, so looking for it right now, is trying to find Devontae Parker. He went in your draft in the 7th round, whereas Kenny Stills went in the 8th round. He just went, he went like 10 picks later. So it was very close.
Yeah, because we know how to respect Kenny Stills.
You respect the Stills.
Yes.
So in terms of my rankings, I actually have them 3 spots apart. That was before this news. I had Parker, then Marquise Goodwin, Marquise Lee, and then Kenny Stills. So would you...
Well, you had them pretty good ranked before.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the same page with you that they're very, very close. I was just wondering if this would do anything to it. So maybe I'll move Stills up into Parker's spot, but we'll get to Marquise Goodwin here in a second, but I think I may have to move him up, move Pierre Garcon down a little bit. Would you take Devontae Parker, Robert Woods?
No.
I'd take Woods.
I at that point, I would probably take Parker this is kind of your argument with the quarterbacks. I would go for ceiling at that point. Robert Woods, I think, is a great option, but I just see him as being that consistent. All right, yeah, he's in my lineup as my wide receiver 3 or 4. It's fun for bye weeks. I just don't see the ceiling. If anything, I know I just railed on him, but if Parker ever can stay on the field and puts it together, the ceiling is definitively better than Robert Woods.
Edelman coming back in a PPR, presumably in week 4, or Devontae Parker?
Edelman. I'll those first 4 weeks, I'll make up for Edelman. And when he comes back, what has Edelman done? He's been a number 1 wide receiver in PPR for how many years?
Funchess or Parker?
I'll
take Funchess.
I'll take Funchess. I don't want either one of them.
Cooper Kupp.
I'll actually go Kupp.
I'll go Kupp too. Robbie Anderson. I'll take Robbie Anderson.
I'll take Robbie Anderson as well.
All right, so we're pretty much on the same page in terms of Devontae Parker. LaShawn
That's
McCoy.
not good for my rankings.
Yeah, well, LaShawn McCoy might be in some hot water. We'll see. His ex-girlfriend has filed a personal injury lawsuit against him on Monday afternoon. He hasn't been charged, but the NFL could still place him on the commissioner's exempt list. We've seen guys who have not been convicted of anything or had a court case thrown out still end up suspended for a little bit. What do you think this will do to the overall perception of LaShawn McCoy? Because he's been going pretty low as it is. And is this just a flyer to any time that you get past the 12th round in the draft, just take Chris Ivory and see what happens?
I think both of those. I'm still taking LaShawn McCoy towards the end of the second round. And somebody asked me about LaShawn McCoy today. He's like, why do you like LaShawn McCoy? So it's because he's LaShawn McCoy. He is their offense. And I don't care that the Bills are miserable and they might be starting Josh Allen. You're still talking about somebody with volume week in and week out who is the offense, who is similar to David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell and all the rest of them, isn't coming off the field. If they're up by 30 or down by 30, you'll see maybe a little bit more off the field, a little bit more mixed in of Chris Ivory if they're up by 30. I mean, just trying out the clock and keep him healthy. But for the most part, he's out there until the end of the game. So I think Chris Ivory, though, still is worth taking in the 11th, 12th round, because if something were to happen and he is suspended for 2, 4, 6 games, Chris Ivory, not exciting, but he'll at least be an RB3, potentially in non-PPR and RB2 on volume alone. And similar to the volume with running backs is always going to help the situation. Leonard Fournette last year is the perfect example. The guy didn't even average 4 yards per carry, but because of the volume in those 13 games, still finished as a top 10 running back.
Fournette or McCoy? I'll go Fournette.
I'll go Fournette.
Jerick or McCoy? I think I'll stick with Jerick very slightly in a PPR.
I'm going McCoy.
Okay, would you go McCoy or Christian McCaffrey in a PPR?
Full point PPR, I'm going McCaffrey.
For right now, I'm going to stick with Shady, and I want to see what happens, because I know that McCaffrey is going to outscore him in terms of a reception base, but I think that McCoy could still finish top 10 in receptions out of the backfield of any running back.
I really want to see what happens this week with the Panthers, honestly. And that whole not using C.J. Anderson with the first team offense at all I was dumbfounded by that. And that's because I don't love C.J. Anderson anymore. That has nothing to do with it. I don't understand why you sign somebody who at this point is better than what Jonathan Stewart was last year, and you don't give him any reps. Or I don't know, the whole he's behind Cameron Artis-Payne on the depth chart. I don't know what they're trying to do or what's going on with that. But Christian McCaffrey still gets basically 90% of the first team work again in week 2 of the preseason. I think we're really going to have to take the word of, we want to get him 20-plus touches a game. The 25 to 30 is stupid, but 20-plus a game, granted, they're probably going to get him killed by week 8, but you're going to enjoy those first 8 weeks.
The Panthers might be running like a fake news offense here in the preseason, that they're showing us one thing, but they're going to do something completely else by the time week 1 actually rolls around.
So you're saying no DJ Moore, no Christian McCaffrey, all CJ Anderson and Devin Funchess and
Greg Olsen. Don't forget about Greg Olsen. Reports coming out of camp say that he's not running gingerly anymore. Very fluid. That's great news.
It is great news, but it's been about a year and a half since we've really seen the real Greg Olsen. So I think that as long as he's healthy, 100, even if he's 90% of what he used to be, that's still better than most of the tight ends in the position. He's still worthy of being in that top 5 conversation.
Shady's old backup, Jonathan Williams, is, quote, making a run up the depth chart. I actually think Williams could be the front runner to inherit the Mark Ingram role to begin the season behind Alvin Kamara. Maybe see like 10 to 15 carries a game, maybe get some red zone work. We'll see. I don't think that, it's a lock to happen, but I think he'd be the favorite right now. And I don't see a reason why, if he played well, that after Mark Ingram, that awful Mark Ingram comes back, why Jonathan Williams just wouldn't keep the role. Resign him for less, let Ingram walk.
Well, so I'll attack the first part first, but the Jonathan Williams thing doesn't surprise me. Remember, Jonathan Williams had a ton of excitement before he got suspended back with the Bills and all that type of situation. So the talent's there. I initially thought it was going to be Boston Scott, but that's before we started getting Jonathan Williams in the mix, and they signed Shane Vereen and they signed Terrence West. And to me, that tells them that, maybe they took a flyer on Scott and already didn't like him. It was a 6th round pick. So those things just don't work out that often. It's still surprising to me they didn't really give him that much of a chance. But in any case, Williams has the talent we've seen before. So I think he's a great late round flyer for that situation. When Mark Ingram comes back, he's not going to stay in front of Mark Ingram. The thing that
why not? Why can't he? I mean, the last time we saw Mark Ingram, besides him getting busted for PEDs, he was like fighting with Sean Payton on the sidelines.
Okay, so maybe if Sean Payton hates him like you do,
no. I've been sending letters to Sean Payton too. I'd be like, hey, here's some Viking and don't play Mark Ingram.
What kind of magazine did you cut the letters out of?
And I signed it as myself.
Vogue?
No, I am out there. I am not anonymous online. And I am not anonymous through my pen writing campaign. But this is what I'm saying.
All right. Well, in any case, the difference is Mark Ingram's still a superior talent, whether or not you believe that.
I don't. He's worse.
I know
he might be the worst running back of all time.
So here's my concern.
He's the best at falling over the 2-yard line and not scoring a touchdown. He's the best at that.
Whatever.
Number one talent.
It's clear. You hate Mark Ingram. We got it. But all that being said, I'm going to give you the counter argument where I could be wrong. is not necessarily wrong that Mark Ingram doesn't stay in front of him, but this also affects Kamara, is where we start heading down this. Reggie Bush, Pierre Thomas, Darren Sproles back when he was there, and Traveris Cadet, like where we start turning into that three-headed backfield that the Saints have done numerous times before. And obviously Kamara would seem to be the safest of those, but similar to this discussion from before, if he isn't as efficient as last year, and then they do pull it back and they say, you know what, Jonathan Williams looks so good, we got to keep Mark Ingram in the mix. And now we pull Kamara back to 12 or 13 touches a game instead of 14 to 16. That's my biggest concern with this backfield. So I love Kamara I would consider selling Kamara if he goes off for those first 3 weeks. Consider selling him high because people were going bananas over him.
Yeah, but everyone's going to see the situation with Ingram returning, and I don't think you'll get the value that you might. I mean, with some people, sure, because they're morons and you won't be able to figure that out. But I think that
not even morons.
But every article you'll read coming out will be like, oh, Ingram's coming back. Now's the time to sell Kamara. He might actually be like a nice buy high.
No, because there'll be people like you still talking about, well, now Mark Ingram's not going to get the touches he used to get because you can't take him away from Kamara.
Yeah, but that's literally just me.
I don't think it is. I've seen some people out there already touting that Mark Ingram down the second half of last year just wasn't as effective. Why not give Kamara the ball more next season? Blah, 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 blah.
Well, I think that Kamara would have got the ball more last season, but he kept scoring 70-yard touchdowns. So, he just did it all on one play instead of 4.
Yeah, he's way too efficient. Again, to go back to that efficiency was off the charts.
It was, but I think that some of his high-end efficiency actually led to him touching the ball fewer times.
That's a fair argument. That's exactly what we're saying, is that he gets more touches this year, less efficiency, and you still get the Kamara you had last year.
Yeah, exactly. And if that's the case, then he's a guy that I most definitely want, that I would buy even if Ingram is around or not. Next one. Hey, pick a number. Would you pick a number if I asked you over 50 or under 50?
For what?
Just pick one. Over 50 or under 50?
Over 50.
Okay, we'll start with this story first. 49ers backfield. Alfred Morris has been signed. Jerick McKinnon's MRI on his knee showed it's just a muscle strain, not the end of the world. Matt Breida hurt his shoulder. Something happened to Joe Williams, I think. And then Raheem Mozart, or whatever that guy's name is, he took over the role of both excellent piano player and composer, and he played the first team snaps while Jerick was out. They're having problems fielding a team, especially in the backfield. Do you think this Alfred Morris signing is anything to be concerned about for the overall touches of both Jerick McKinnon, Matt Breida, potentially Williams? Like, is he going to make this roster? And the last time he played under Shanahan, he was quite good. But is he just there
to mustard?
Or is he just there to be like a training camp filler until they get the healthy bodies back?
No, I think he's a legitimate threat to make this team, because if you looked at it, he was pretty effective with the Cowboys too. And granted, it was a very small sample, and it's a great offensive line, but he still has something left. And you talked about him before as somebody that Shanahan knows. I think the biggest thing here is that, as we said before, and I know you're not necessarily agreeing with me 100%, but I've been banging that quote-unquote table saying, stop overdrafting Jerick McKinnon. He's not touching the ball 20 times a game. He's just not built for that. He's Lamar Miller-like, 14, 17, 18, in that range, where you can be very effective. You can be a high-end RB2. I like you there. People are taking him in the second round. I don't like you there. Stop doing that. And with the Alfred Morris, this is painting the picture perfectly, saying they want bodies in that backfield, because whether or not Jerick McKinnon is 100%, and this is just a small tweak, he's not touching the ball 20-plus times a game, whether it's Breida, whether it's Morris, whether it's Mostert who playing his piano.
Mozart!
It's going to be somebody. And I think that Alfred Morris is more of a threat to, well, is Matt Breida the one to own behind Jerick McKinnon? Because if Breida can't get healthy, Alfred Morris might push him down to the third role. And if Joe Williams is off the team, like, I think Alfred Morris could end up being the number 2 on this team.
Would you draft Alfred Morris in like the 15th round? I was down to draft Breida.
I am, but I want to see if Breida's going to miss legitimate time. If Breida's potentially going to miss regular season action, then yes, I will draft Alfred Morris even in PPR. Right now, as of today, maybe a 15th rounder in non-PPR only. You got to remember, this guy's never been a pass catcher, even when he was a top 10 running back for the Redskins.
Yeah, but I don't think that anyone was penciling in even Breida or whoever is behind Jerick to be involved in the passing game whatsoever. That was going to be Jerick.
No, Breida's a decent pass catcher.
Yeah, but that was always going to be Jerick, or that was going to be Kyle Jerick.
Juszczyk.
It was going to be one of those two guys. I mean, you got Jerick and Mozart. You got.
Can you
cut
spell
it.
Juszczyk? Can you spell Juszczyk?
No, it starts with a J. And
Juszczyk, I think it is.
See, that's why you work for The Athletic and I'm an illiterate.
I might have missed a letter in there. It sounded too short when I just said it. If I typed it out, I could spell it.
Yo, does it like autocorrect to what you need it to go to?
No. It's one of those things where if I see it, I know if I'm spelling it correctly.
Okay.
Like, if I was doing a spelling bee with those Script National things, I would have to be. Can I just write it on something instead of just trying to spell it out loud?
Yeah, but they don't let you do that. You have to like error write it when you go
I know,
through
you
it.
have to I don't understand how. I guess that helps them.
Yeah, well, you visualize it in your head, then you're able to say it out, so you don't miss any of the
Like
letters.
they do the forearm thing with like.
I also can't spell, so that's just bad news for me whatsoever. Even after my columns get edited, there are still so many mistakes that some of them come through.
I still remember when I told you Devontae Adams was spelled wrong. You said, "Who the hell cares?"
Yeah, I spelled it. I spelled his name wrong for like 5 years in my rankings, and Delaney Walker, I had. I forget. I had his name spelled wrong, whatever it was.
A-I-N instead of A-N-I.
Yeah, and so I remember Tim McCullough, the former editor at Roto Experts, emailed me about it. I told him it was fake news. You just leave it.
Well, I don't blame you with the Devontae one. It's because there's 15 Devontaes in the NFL, and every single one of them spells their first name differently.
Sometimes you get confused. Anyway, I've updated it. Now that I'm at DK Playbook, then top-notch spellings there. I even have fewer like hyperlinks. Almost because it's hard to like fit into all the columns and change them all up.
Do you ever miss the golfers' names?
No, I have all the golfers' names down.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been writing those more for the past. By like week 10, I'll have everyone's names down. But right now, I'm still in golf mode. The other 49ers story that I have is that ESPN's reporting Marcus Goodwin is, quote, clearly Jimmy Garoppolo's favorite target versus Garcon. Do you believe this, and would you draft Goodwin over Garcon?
I do believe it. I don't know if that necessarily means that he's going to see more targets, though, because you could be the favorite and still not see more targets. Like, he just likes to look to him first. He likes to go to him when he can. There's certain skill sets that still lean towards who's going to see the higher volume. What we've seen from Garcon so far and what we've seen from Goodwin so far of careers would still point to Garcon seeing a higher volume of targets. Probably even, if you look at it, let's take it back to the similar with the Titans situation where Deion Lewis outscores Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry sees more snaps. We could conceivably see more targets and receptions for Pierre Garcon, but Marquise Goodwin outscore him just because of the play, the yards per play, and the touchdowns and all that type of stuff. So Goodwin's been undervalued. This is going to drive his price up. It might continue to get inflated, especially if he has a nice week in week 2 with all the excitement around Jimmy Garoppolo and the GOAT and all that type of stuff. So it could get to a point where he becomes priced out. But as of right now, Goodwin's still going at a good enough price, but so is Garcon.
Tampa Bay, Dirk Cutter head coach, said Peyton Barber.
I don't have a job soon.
Peyton Barber, quote, is our starter at running back. Charles Sims is going to be on the bubble for the 53-man roster, their exclusive pass catcher out of the backfield. Maybe Sean Wilson steps into that spot. Maybe that's the spot where they use RG2, Ronald Jones II. Very blue blood when it comes to RG2. But in terms of Peyton Barber, he's a guy who's like basically going undrafted. He's now going like the 11th round or something. I've always kind of liked Barber. This was always my big negative as it came to Ronald Jones being ranked so highly to begin with, and that's why he was down. If you go back and watch the running back shows, I like Barber, and I think that they like him too, and they're going to use him as long as Cutter's there, which, like you said, might only last like 4 weeks. But as long as he is the head coach, I think I would take Barber before I took Jones.
I'm not. This is you want to talk about fake news to fake news. We do this every single year.
Well, if it's fake news, then Peyton Barber is the starter.
No, the fake news that Peyton Barber is their favorite.
No, that's not fake news. That's real news.
We do this every offseason, especially with the rookie running backs. This boring veteran who can't do anything is the one in the lead, and he's getting the first team reps, and he's our starter. And then what do? We get to week 1, and not a surprise, the more talented rookie is in the lead. You look at Ronald Jones. He's definitively more talented, except in the passing game. That's the question that we have coming out about Ronald Jones. That's the concern you have about Ronald Jones being a workhorse. But you're not drafting Ronald Jones as a workhorse, and you shouldn't ever draft Ronald Jones as a workhorse. He can be that first and second down option and not see a lot of third down work and see that to Peyton Barber and still be an RB2. It's not every single – look, not every team has a workhorse running back. Not every team has a bell cow. You can't own one for every single team and every single fantasy roster, and you're not going to have it up and down your depth chart. These are some of the decisions we have to make. I'm taking Ronald Jones. I've been taking him a lot as my RB3 recently. Maybe week 1, it's a little bit more mixed, but it's still, the talent is better. Peyton Barber is not a jag. He's a little bit better than that, but he's just not equipped to be the explosive ability that Ronald Jones has.
All right, Baltimore, John Harbaugh says John Brown has been, quote, better than we expected. We've talked about John Brown, I think, the past 2 shows. He's entirely draftable at this point for me, and you can get him in like the 14th round.
I think I own John Brown on, like, he's one of the, if I put out like my 5 most highest owned players, John Brown is up there. And it's because, as you talked about, too, he's out of the altitude. He's not playing in Denver anymore. He's not playing in Arizona anymore. He's not playing in all those teams that are out in the high, almost to a mile high in the ceiling or sky. So if you look at it now, he's on the East Coast over by me. That's a big issue for what he has and what he's dealing with the sickle cell trait. There was Ryan Grant years ago that couldn't actually even play. Like, at least John Brown was playing in those altitudes. Ryan Grant couldn't play at all with the same condition. So you're looking at John Brown. Healthy is all we need from him. We've seen the 1,000+ yards. We've seen the high number of touchdowns. You put him with Joe Flacco. Granted, Joe Flacco still only throws 6 yards per attempt, but John Brown can do a lot after the catch. And he will occasionally get a deep ball from Joe Flacco until Lamar Jackson takes over in week 10 or whatever it is.
John Brown or Kenny Golladay?
Ooh. For price, I'm taking John Brown.
No, just straight up, like to put them into rankings.
I'd still go Kenny Golladay, but it's very close. I think John Brown actually has a higher ceiling.
Sterling Shepard or John Brown?
Sterling Shepard. Way too much hate for Sterling Shepard.
Okay. Josh Doxson or John Brown?
I'll take John Brown. I love Josh Doxson.
Anthony Miller or John Brown?
Anthony Miller.
Everyone on Chicago is going to have 150 catches and 20 touchdowns, aren't they?
He's not. He's absolutely not. But he landed in a terrific position where he could get 600 to 700 yards and 5 or 6 touchdowns. John Brown, higher ceiling but much lower floor. I put it this way: that'll come down to your team makeup. John Brown could be a wide receiver, a top 25 wide receiver, or he could be nothing for the entire year.
All right, well, this brings us into our next one. Would you go Geronimo Allison, who is being talked up as the Packers' 3rd wide receiver, which is a great spot to be in, or John Brown?
I'll go John Brown because
I'll go Geronimo.
No, the 2nd wide receiver on a team is better than the 3rd, even on the Packers.
I don't know about that. Not when it's Flacco, man.
Just John Brown's like he's going to end up on so many of my teams and continue. Forget about it. He'll be on a lot of them.
All right, I just happen to I've been high on Allison anyway because I always thought he would win this role. And I like Cobb. I like Adams. I hate Jimmy Graham as a fantasy asset this year.
Jimmy Graham is turning into a value at this point because people hate him so much.
Well, they shouldn't take him. He's terrible.
No, he is terrible, but if you're going to start pushing him down to the 8th or the 9th round, I'm going to take Jimmy Graham there.
No, just pass. I'll still take Delaney Walker.
No, Delaney Walker's 75 years old.
That's fine. So is Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham might be older than Delaney Walker.
What is he got, like one of the El Duque birth certificates that we don't know about?
I'm trying to see. Jimmy Graham is 31.
Yeah.
And how old is Delaney?
Delaney Walker's 35, I think, or 34.
He's 34. Wow. Delaney Walker's older than me. I feel great. I'm in the best shape of my life. I reported to this preseason, best shape of my life, Jake.
I'm slightly older than you and Delaney Walker, and I'm not in the best shape of my life. My knee is actually hurting right now.
What, is like the humidity high? So it's like, oh, there's a rainstorm coming. I can feel it in my knee.
I got to go get the cattle in from the backyard after this show.
The big difference to me between the two, and even in terms of age, is that I feel like Delaney Walker can continue to do what he does in terms of style of play, regardless of how old he is. It's not like he's an athletic specimen. So much on Jimmy Graham's ability to even get separation inside the red zone. Yes, some of it is positioning. Yes, some of it is size. But his extreme athleticism goes a long way. This is a guy who's been beat down with injuries, and now he's getting old. And now he's on a team that he might be a decoy, and everyone else scores all the touchdowns. That could be his role on this team. And if that's the thing, he's going to score 0 points a game.
I think you're misremembering last year a little bit. I don't think he has extreme athleticism at all anymore. I think he just is now Des Bryant of tight ends. Is just go use your big body in the red zone and come down with the 50-50 ball. All
right, let's talk about more tight ends here. Ed Dickson hurt his groin. That's not good. He's also on Seattle. For anyone else that didn't realize that, he also has alligator arms and can barely catch the ball. But Nick Vannett is now working as the Seahawks starting tight end. We know that Baldwin's already down, but he'll be back. Brandon Marshall, Jaron Brown, or Jaron Brown, or what the hell his name is. And then you got Tyler Lockett. There are targets to go around. Is this a flyer you take, or is it just way too off the board?
No, it's definitely somebody I could see, but we're talking deeper leagues. We're talking best balls. We're talking deeper rosters and stuff, because there's just so many tight ends before you get to, before this, Ed Dickson and now Nick Vannett. There was like the Vance McDonald's that you like and I like as well, and also Safarian Jenkins and Ricky Seals-Jones. And I mean, heck, even Jake Butt out in Denver. Like you can just, there's so many names already out there that you never really needed to get to Seattle.
Brian Schottenheimer, Seahawks OC, says that Brandon Marshall is, quote, looking very good. You believe it?
I don't, and I'll tell you one thing. You know how much I love Rashad Penny. This actually makes me concerned for Rashad Penny, because if Schottenheimer really thinks Brandon Marshall is looking good, I'm starting to question whether or not Rashad Penny looks as good as he thinks he does in pass blocking.
Yeah, maybe so. It's just one of these. Maybe just Schottenheimer's
He's just senile.
Maybe he's just a super nice guy. He wants to boost up everyone. They all look great. Everyone's a winner. He gives everyone a participation ribbon at the end of every practice. They feel good about themselves. I mean, Brandon Marshall's not quite a millennial, but how old's Brandon Marshall? He could be a millennial for all I know.
He's like 30, I think he's like 35.
35? 34.
I think
he's like 3 days older than Delaney Walker.
Well, so there you go. You know what? Somebody should do a litmus test with him and ask him what he thinks of the offensive line, and then we'll really know what Schottenheimer's telling us.
True. Chicago Tribune believes it is no longer fair to call Tariq Cohen, the Hebrew Hammer, a running back, because he is basically a wide receiver at this point. Does that do anything for you to move him up in PPR and maybe lend some more credence to more touches for Jordan Howard? I don't know. I like Cohen, but eventually, everything in this Chicago offense has to get divvied up somehow, and not everyone can be good. And just, I see no consistency from him.
No, I don't see any consistency. I think you look at what he is. He's theoretic for their offense. And, theoretic even lines up in the line of scrimmage sometimes. So, I don't care. I just rolled my eyes when I heard that. Like, all right, mostly because I don't want to start heading down this road where we move Ty Montgomery to running back, which I didn't have a problem with because that's what he was being used as. But we start heading down this road where we start getting dual positions in football and stuff. That's just going to be annoying as hell, especially because some sites are going to do it, some sites are not. So hopefully this doesn't go down that route. But Tariq Cohen is what he is. He's theoretic, and that's fine. That's great in PPR as your third running back because a lot of weeks you'll be able to use him there. But to your point, he's better as the third for when you have buys or if you went wide receiver heavy. He's not somebody you want definitively in your lineup. I said definitively like 5 times today for some reason. That's my word of the day. But in any case, if you look at it, Cohen is what he is. Nice value PPR, non-PPR. I don't really want him on my roster.
Jay Gruden doesn't expect to add another running back following the injury to Darius Geis, who we talked about on my show from New York on last Friday. And just to rehash it, I thought that they would go out and sign someone, whether it was someone like Jonathan Williams if he had gotten cut, or Terrence West in New Orleans, or whoever gets cut between
Orleans Darkwa,
or your buddy Orleans Darkwa. Pass. Whether who got cut between Jeremy Hill or Mike Gillisley, that kind of thing. But it doesn't seem as of right now that they're going to do anything to replace Geis in that fashion, leaving Samaje Perine, or Samaje P. Henson, as I enjoy to call him, Rob Kelly, Chris Thompson still around. I guarantee Kareem Rob Kelly. Capri Bibbs will end up starting a game for them at some point. And I guess this kind of brings me to the other question with the last guys we just talked about, because they're all right around each other in my rankings, and I'll have to re-rank them because I still haven't taken Geis out yet, and maybe we'll get to Royce Freeman and throw him in this mix too. Can you rank for me Royce Freeman, Ronald Jones, Chris Thompson, Tariq Cohen in a PPR? Because I think Chris Thompson's probably the best one of that bunch now. Maybe Freeman.
So Royce Freeman I have at 19.
Okay.
Chris Thompson I have at 25. Ronald Jones at 27. And who was the other one?
Cohen.
34.
Ice Cream Cohen.
So there you go. Royce Freeman is not getting enough respect. He actually is a better pass catcher than people realize.
Well, and ESPN's what the hell is his name? Jeff Legwold believes Royce Freeman will be the Broncos' primary back before too long. Now, when we say primary back, does that mean workhorse back? Or does that mean guy who gets 60% of the snap share, maybe 45 on some weeks if Booker has the hot hand or someone else has the hot hand?
I think he's the lead option. I don't think he's a bell cow where you're talking that 60, 70% every single week, but he's the lead option, and maybe he has an off game, and you see, as you said, a little bit more Devontae Booker. And if they are getting killed in a game, which hopefully their defense, and that's kind of why I like Royce Freeman too, because that defense should keep teams in check, and they shouldn't really get blown out of any games. But if they are, maybe you see a little bit more Devontae Booker, because despite Freeman being better pass catcher than people realize, it's kind of similar to Derrick Henry. Isn't it like you want him to be your pass catching option, and Booker is better than he is in the passing game. So that's the only concern you have. It, but this is down the running back carousel they were talking about before with the Ronald Jones and the Rashad Pennies and all the rest of them. Is like, oh, they might get it in time. They might be the lead by week 5. They might be. We do this every single year. Trust the fact when teams spend third round or greater capital on a rookie running back, there's a good chance they're starting for the team next season.
Devontae Booker did play with the first team against the Vikings in the first preseason game. We'll see how that evolves, but I think that's something to monitor.
It definitely is. I'm not going to stick to this because teams are, I don't want to say bullheaded, because sometimes if they're seeing things in practice, I'm not. As of right now, I can say bullheaded because the talent disparity, in my opinion, is Freeman over Booker. It's Penny over anybody else. It's Ronald Jones over Peyton Barber. But if they're seeing something and the players aren't showing themselves and they start the season and we get to week 3 and we finish week 3 of the preseason and the volume still isn't there, I'm not going to sit here and be like, Royce Freeman's still top 15 running back.
If we had to rank the Skins running backs in PPR, for me, it'd be Thompson, Kelly, Pirine.
Yeah, that's exactly how I have them.
Yeah, and that could really get changed up once we see what they do on offense. But I just think that regardless of what happens, Thompson's going to get his, at least out of the passing game, and maybe squeak out an extra few carries that maybe he wouldn't have gotten when Geis was there. But I do think they'll turn to Kelly. They seem to love Rob Kelly.
Yeah, they seem to, which is strange to me. Not that I'm the biggest Samaje Perine fan, and I think he's got some talent, and he looked pretty dang on good in college. But if you look at it last year, he struggled, but I don't know why they didn't try and give him a second chance. He didn't struggle that much. He didn't have that much of an opportunity to say, oh, he's done. He still had, I think, close to 700 rushing yards.
All right, let's get to some quick news items. You tell me whether you care about this or just pass it on, all right?
All right.
All right, number 1, Tennessee Titans website reports Tajay Sharp has been receiving, quote, more and more work with the first team while Rashard Matthews is injured.
Pass it on. As long as Rashard Matthews is ready for week 1, I don't really care between Tywan Taylor and Tajay Sharp.
I still think Tywan Taylor is better than Tajay Sharp.
I don't disagree with you. I just don't care about who the third wide receiver is for the Titans.
Okay. In Detroit, MLive's Kyle Menke writes, Luke Wilson looks like the Lions' starting tight end.
He can look like whatever the hell they want him to be. I don't care. It's still have Levine Toilulu is supposed to be in the mix, and Michael Roberts, and those are the 3 most miserable tight ends in the league.
Jags OC Nathaniel Hackett says D.D. Westbrook is a better route runner than last season.
Well, I would hope so. That's one of the areas he needed to improve on. So I guess I technically care about this one a little bit. When it comes to fantasy, though, I'm still a Keelan Cole one. I've heard a lot of reports from down there very close to the team that Keelan Cole is their favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lee is really the only one that has, like, PPR fantasy viability week to week. Like, I really do think the rest of them are going to be a crapshoot, because I'll throw Dante Moncrief into that mix, too. Like, in any given week, it could be any one of them. Like, I don't see myself starting any of them. Do you?
I think you could if somebody finds some type of consistency. I was originally on the Moncrief train, but we haven't seen much from him so far. And as I said, there's a lot of talk coming about Keelan Cole. So I think Cole could separate from the others to a degree where he's startable in non-PPR. PPR, I would agree with you. I don't know that we're going to get consistency out of as anybody not named Marquise Lee.
2 injury notes to report. Quincy Enunwa, little Quincy, has a thumb injury, but he has returned to practice. He did that over the weekend. Terrell Pryor said he suffered a broken ankle in May, and now the coaches are all pissed off with him. Do you care about either one of these guys?
A little bit of Quincy Enunwa, but again, this is kind of like, Quincy. Why do I really care? Yeah, why do I care that much about the third wide receiver for the Jets? Because Curse is the number 2, and maybe Enunwa can push past him for like the actual targets, the usage, and all that type of stuff. So there's some value there, but this like the Curse and Enunwas are better for best ball.
Saquon Barkley and his hamstring problem working to the side of Tuesday's practice. Do you worry about this at all? That's a hamstring injury this early?
No, because it's a small tweak, and the best news about it is they're not going to use him this week. So I just get to the season healthy. That's all I care. I want to see less touches, less bangs, Or yeah, I want to say less banged up potential and getting hits and stuff. So I just want to be ready for week 1.
Apparently, Des Bryant is meeting with the Browns on Thursday. You think it's going to happen? Because I really don't.
I don't. I still think he's using the Browns to try and drum up interest elsewhere. I'm shocked still to this day that the Colts have not called Des Bryant.
Cameron Meredith has been sidelined with an undisclosed injury. He's missed several days of practice in a row. Does this have you concerned for a guy that missed all of last season with a devastating knee injury?
Yeah, because is it really undisclosed? Is it just we don't want to say? It's exactly what everything was concerned with the Bears, where they were like, oh, fine, sign them. We don't care. Like, I think that's the disclosure, is that we kind of can speculate what the issue is here. So Cameron Meredith has plenty of talent, even though this is one of those teams, similar to like if you like Geronimo Allison with the Packers, well, the third wide receiver, even if he's still behind Ted Ginn for the Saints, very often, most seasons have put up 700-800 receiving yards. So if he's out there, he could even become the number 2 past Ted Ginn. But this has to be a concern. This has to be somebody you're moving down your draft board after the Bears just said, see ya.
Finally, Mike Reese from Boston reports that Philip Dorsett was shaken up at the end of a play on 11-on-11 drills and has gone off to the blue medical tent. For what? I don't know what happens in there. Probably real shady stuff. Then he walked there slowly with members of the athletic training staff. Yeah.
We have a training staff?
Yeah, they have a training staff. It's just the guy who injects them all with steroids. Brady's buddy.
The athletic. You paused. You said the athletic and then training staff. I was like, so anyway.
I'm getting used to your new job. I'm sorry. I'm not there on the quips yet. But, I mean, Dorsett is incredibly Anderhurst coming into the year. And then Tim's even told me after I texted this to him that he'd be okay, which means he's probably like going to be dead in like 2 hours. So, I mean, I had no interest anyway, but like Eric Decker, it's been reported, hasn't looked good at practice whatsoever. This really
what a shock.
This really just lends a path for Edelman's just going to be good when he comes back.
All right. I think that's all we cared about anyway. Let's go back to Jordan Matthews before he got cut. The entire point was, hey, you know what? He's a fine flyer at the 14th round, but how excited are you going to get about somebody you basically have for 4 weeks? Same thing if it was Dorsett or if it's Kenny Britt or whoever the hell it may be. What do you really care that much for 4 weeks? If anything, he's almost kind of like, you know what? If I drafted Edelman, okay, then I'll draft the other option that might be in for the 4 weeks. But at this point, it looks like it's just going to be Hogan, Gronk, Rex Burkhead, and some hodgepodge wide receiver mismatch situation, whatever they decide to do.
All right, that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. By the time this show has been released, my rankings will be updated up on DKPlaybook.com. You can also find them in the description of this video or podcast, same as the link to the entire PME Fantasy Football 2018 Draft Kit. Give the episode a like, review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Plus, check my Twitter. There are some DK Bucks giveaways that pertains to reading the audio podcast version. So, Jake, let everyone know what's coming up there at The Athletic.
Yeah, like I said, the rankings are out free only this week. So go enjoy them while you can. And if not, sign up because you just get everything on The Athletic if you sign up. And I'm working on a new podcast. You're going to see me here. As you see right now, I'm going to be on Still with Pat. So that's good stuff. Article is basically out every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So plenty of content to get you ready before the season comes.
Yeah, follow Jake on Twitter at AllInKid. Follow me at ThePME. And we'll be back tomorrow with a review of the Flex League non-PPR, the only non-PPR that we're going to talk all season draft and see where the best picks there were and review Jake's team. I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
That Mayo Experience! Experience!